Well, welcome everyone again. I was just waiting for folks to join, but I think we have a good crowd already. So my name is Max Katz, and I do everything education and community for Okta Workflows. So this is a getting started with Okta Workflows online meetup, and specifically, as I cover the fundamentals, I will build a flow where we invite new users to a Slack channel. Okay, so again, uh, we will cover the fundamentals as I build the flow. We'll also test the flow, and again, I'll kind of as I build it, I'll cover everything that's important. This event is being recorded, and then it will be available on YouTube on our Okta Workflows playlist, likely sometime tomorrow. And then you'll also get a email message via Zoom with a link to the video and also some other resources. Okay. If you have any questions, I know there is a chat, and then also there's a Q&A. So feel free to uh, post any questions. All right. If someone just wants to put a message that you can hear me okay and see me okay, that would be awesome. And then we'll get started. All right. Let's um, and then let's start. Let's start here. So again, this is a getting started with Okta Workflows, and we'll cover the basics or the fundamentals. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new flow. Now, this is my workflows dashboard. Now, if you're just starting, it's going to look similar, but of course, you're not going to have all the folders on the left-hand side. You can see these are folders, and I have, subfolders, and I have a lot of different flows. If you're just starting, you're going to have, I think it's called the default folder. That's what you are going to see. Now, to create a new flow, inside any folder, there is a new flow, and that's what I'm going to do. Um, all right, so I created a new flow, and um, right here, it says unnamed. So you can click there and give it a name. So we'll call it invite user to Slack. Okay, and then if you would like, you can give it a description, and you can just do the same here. Now, I'm also going to check this option, and this is going to help me. I'm going to show you what this option does, but when we run the flow, we can see the history of each execution. Okay, so click this and then click save. All right, we created the flow. We gave the flow a name, and now we're ready. Now, when you're starting with the flow, usually the first thing you're gonna kind of consider is how do you trigger a flow or how do you run a flow? And one way you can trigger a flow is based on an event, right? So it's kind of an event-driven uh, you know, architecture, I guess. So when an event happens in Okta, it could also happen in an external system, but for now we're just going to focus on Okta. So when an event happens in Okta, you can trigger a flow, right? Now another option is you can also run a flow on schedule. So you can run this flow maybe every hour, every day, every week, and so on. Okay, but in this example, we will focus on an event. Okay, now how do you add this event? So it says when this happens, right? So when this event happens, run this flow. Now, how do you add the event? Well, it says add event. And I now see a list of connectors, right? So connectors are connectors to services. This could be external services and also to Okta. So I'm going to use an event from Okta, and right here I select Okta. Now it says connected apps because once you have a connector, you need to create a connection to that connector. Now these are all the connectors for which I already have a connection. But then you can see there are also other connectors for which you can also create connections here. But let's go with Okta. And when you select Okta, you see a list of events that you can use to trigger a flow. So see, there's a lot of events. Now, what I going to do is I'm going to search for user activated. Okay, so when we have a new user in Okta in your organization, I want to add this user uh, to Slack. So user activated event. Okay. So I see, Mario, I see that you raised your hand. If you have a question, feel free to um, type it in the chat or the Q&A. I'll just wait for a sec. All right, I hope the chat is working. I don't see any more messages. Let me see here. Um, hmm. Oh, chat is okay. Man, that's happened to me again. Okay, let me see. How do I enable chat? Let me see here. They're just trying to see where I can enable chat. All right. Well, I'm gonna continue. But why don't you just put the questions in the Q&A, and then I guess we can just use that route. But if anyone knows how to quickly enable chat, feel free to put it in the Q&A. All right, let me share back my screen. Um, okay. All right. So yeah, if this is your, so I see that if this is your first time using building a flow, so you will need to create a connection. And then I have an Okta connection here. But yes, if this is your first time, you will need to create a connection to a service. And I'm going to show you actually how to create one for Slack. Okay. Um, but again, what we did so far, we created the flow. We now we want to trigger this flow on this event. Okay. And Now, what I usually do when I add an event is that even before I continue building the flow, I just want to see that this event works. In other words, I want to see that I can trigger when this event happens, it will trigger the flow even without any additional steps. Okay, so let me save this, and then to run the flow, what I need to do is there is a button at the top here. Right now it's off, so I'm gonna turn the flow on. Let me see, there's another question. Is it possible to schedule to activate? Um, so no, I think there's no way to activate like in the future. So you need to schedule. It will be the flow needs to be on to run. But yes, you can run it on schedule. So the flow will stay on and then run on schedule. So for example, it can be every hour, every day, every week, and so on. But the flow has to be on, and you have to turn it on um, for it to run. So there is no programmatic way to turn it off, on and off. Um, all right, so how do we test this? So I've got the flow, it's on. So now I'm gonna go to the Okta dashboard and it's probably okay. I have 1 minute, so I'm gonna keep myself in. So this is my Okta dashboard, and I have got some people in my organization, and I'm gonna take this first person, Kate Helton, and I'm going to activate this user. So I'm gonna click activate and activate. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to the flow. And how do you see that this runs is that, so we've been in the flow tab, right? This is where you build the flow. And I'm going to switch to execution history. And this is where it shows me where each time the flow runs. And you can see there was just a successful run just now. And now I can see all the information that this event provides. Okay, now let me go back, and you can see that these fields, right? This is all the information that the event makes available to me. So there is date and time, an ID. There's also the admin. This is the person who activated the user. That's myself in this case. And there's this the Okta user. That's the user who was activated. Okay, so these are all the fields. Now in Okta, this is called the card, right? So this is an event card, and these are fields, and right here is a connection, right? So now I'm going to go return to history. And again, you can see all this information. So this is the admin, this is myself, and then I can see who the user is. Now also, you'll see if you put the mouse cursor in the upper right corner of a field, you can expand, and then it shows you the JSON. Right? So this particular JSON has 4 attributes, has the user ID, has the email, has their display name, and then the type, right? But what this means is that, hey, this event works. So I can now continue building the flow, all right? So that's what I very often do is before I continue building the flow, hey, let's make sure that this event works. In other words, I can trigger this flow. Um, and if it works, perfect. Then I can continue. Okay. Now, so the final automation that I want to build is I want to add the user to a Slack channel. And what I need to do is I need to extract the username or the name of the user. And if I go back to the execution history, I'm going to open the user ID. So we can see that their email is this Kate at some domain. So what I need to do is I need to get just the first name. Okay, so I need to use some add additional steps to extract the name. Okay, now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a function. Now, in a function, when I click that, it opens a menu that shows me various different functions that I can sort of run or add. And these are primarily functions to work with data. So you can create data, you can edit data, you can search data, you can manipulate data, and so on. So, and they're in different categories. So for example, under text, you have different functions to work with text, numbers, there is true and false, date and time, object, and list. Now, in this particular, as the next step, I need to use the at. I'm sorry, actually split. I want to split the email into the name and then the domain. Now, if you're not sure in which category, what you can do is you can search. Okay. Now you just have to be careful because some functions, they're functions with the same name in different categories. For example, split, there's one in list, and then there is split, one in object, actually third one in text. So you have to be kind of careful sometimes. Like you need to know from which category you need this function. Now, in this particular case is from text. So I'm going to use text. Okay. And so this is also, again, this is called a function card. And then every card will have some inputs, right? In this particular case, it has two inputs, text and the separator, and then there is a result. Now, how do you get data into the card? Well, you take fields from the previous, from any card that appears before this one, and you can, I'm going to show you. So what I need is I need the alternate ID. So you take the alternate ID and you connect it into the field like this. This is one of my favorite capabilities in workflows, is this mapping or connecting data, right? So I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to delete it. So you take any field, right, and you just connect it and drop it like this, right? So this is the input. Now, the other is the separator. And because this is an email, the separator is just the @ sign. Okay? So now, before we run this flow, what I also usually do is you can test individual cards. And there's a run this card button. Okay. And so what I'm going to do, well, let's click run. And then it prompts me to enter data. And so, right, this can be any email. And then you click run. And you can see that the result will be, I'm going to get a list, right, with two values, right? Everything before that sign and everything after that sign, right? So again, I highly recommend you test whenever possible, you test the individual cards by pressing this button here, right? So, okay, so this works. Now, let me run this again just to show you. So this works. Now, what I need is I get a list, but what I need is I just need this value. So I need the index, this is an array, and I need the value at index 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another function, and it's called, I'm going to search for it at. And again, as you can see, there are two of them, lists from the text. Now, in this case, I'm going to use the list one. And from this previous step, right, I'm going to take the list and connect it as the input. And then the property, the index is 0, right? Now, what you should sometimes also do, well, not sometimes, but again, where you need to is every field has a type. And the type, if you put the mouse over the field name, the type is shown right here. Now, this one is an object, right? Now, this one is text, right? So when I retrieve a value from the list, it's actually a text. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this to a text. And so it's going to be a single value, but it's a text in my case, right? But it could be an object, it could be another data type. So this is how you change the type of the field. Now, let's test this also and see how this works. So I'm going to add two values for the list, right? And index 0, I'm going to click run. And I get the result. That's the result that I need, right? So this card also works. All right. But we can now test this entire flow. Just, we tested the event, we tested this card, we tested this card. Hey, let's now test the entire flow and see how it works. So I'm going to go and I'm going to deactivate Kate. And I'm going to activate and go back to workflows, and then go back to execution history. All right, and we can see a second successful run. And now we scroll down, we can see that we connected the email, and then we got this list with two values. And then the next step, we passed in the list, and then we're saying we want the value at index 0, and this is the result of the card. All right. So again, every card will have a similar format. It will have the input at the top and then the result or the output at the bottom. And you can see that the result or the outcome is kind of has a more gray background. That's how you know that that's the output. Okay. Anyhow, so perfect. This works. And what we need to do next is we want to invite this user to Slack, right? To Slack channel. And so up until now, we use the functions. And as I said, the functions allow you to manipulate data in many different ways. But now I'm going to use an app action. Okay. And when I use an app action, it again shows me a list of connectors, built-in connectors in workflows, right? You can see there's a lot of different connectors in workflows. Now, at the beginning, we use Okta for the event, but now I'm going to use Slack. And then once I select the Slack connector, it shows me all the actions that the Slack connector has, right? The one I want to use is invite user to Slack. Now, these actions behind the scenes, these are API calls to Slack. Okay, but you don't need to worry about setting up the API call. Is it the card and these actions kind of help you do that in this kind of a visual, no code way. So I'm going to use invite user to channel. And then it's asking me to select a channel. Now, and again, before you can use this card, you need to create a connection, right? So I actually have 3 connections here, right? And you can create a connection to your development environment, or maybe your testing environment, or a production environment. So you can have, any number of connections for a particular connector. Okay. Now let me show you how it would look if I were to click new connection. So I'm going to give it a name, and online meetup connection, and I'm going to click create. And then what happens, it shows me this, do you want to give that Slack is requesting permission to access Okta, Workflows would like to access the Slack workspace. You just need to select the correct Slack here. So I'm going to use my personal one. And you're going to say allow. And just like that. Now, every connector is going to be a little bit different. This one uses kind of the OAuth 2 flow, but other connectors, you might need to set up some ID or API key and so on. But again, before you can use a connector, you do need to create a connection to the connector. All right, so the channel, now it shows me it connected to my Slack, and it shows me a list of channels. And I want to use new employees, and I'm going to use the username, and I'm going to click save. It's actually now showing me the inputs and the outputs. So I'm going to keep this one is required by default. The output, I can turn it off, but I'll keep it on. That's the status code. I'm going to click save. Right. So this particular action requires just a username. But again, we can test this action and see if it works. So let's click test, and then we can enter Kate, click run, and we get the status code. Now, let's see how it looks in Slack. Right, we can see that Kate was added to new employees by Max. Right, so this means that the card and the action worked. Right, so I'm going to delete Kate because I'm going to be adding Kate again. All right. Now, we need to get the username, right? We just tested the card, so we know that the name is here, and it's item. Now, item is probably not the best name when referring to a person, so we can rename this. And then just to give it more meaning, and to rename this, you select the type, and there's like little arrow, and then you select customize, and you can change this to name and click save. And then take the name and connect it like this. Right? So let's save and let's run this. Let's deactivate first. And let's activate. All right, this is still the old run. Let me see if I can. Oh, here we go. It appeared. Okay. So we can see the event right here. We got the split, we got the at, and then we're sending the Kate name to Slack. And if I go to Slack, we can see that it says Kate rejoined. Um, or is this the old one? Oh, rejoined. Yeah, this is the one. Well, here, let me do this. Sometimes it's C. Let me quickly run this again. But I think it worked. Let me remove Kate. I mean, she wasn't there, so it worked. But let me run this again so you can see. So deactivate and activate. Okay, so Kate left. That's when I removed Kate. All right, I'll rejoin. Yeah, it just changes the same message. So yeah, right. Okay, so far so good. Now we want to do two more things here. We also want to add a message to welcome Kate, right? So this is kind of this is just a Slack message, but we want to actually an actual message in Slack. Say, hey, welcome to other members. Hey, that this new user joined. So we're gonna do two more things here. We're gonna add a function where we can write text, and it's going to be called compose. And we can say, hey, welcome, like please welcome, and the name to this channel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the name and put it right like this. Right, so this is the text, and then the name will be inserted. And then the last step is we want to send a message to Slack, right? In this case, we're inviting a user to a channel, and now we're going to send a message. So it's going to be an action. So again, whenever you're interacting with services, it's an action. And then when you're working with data, manipulating data, that's going to be a function. And it's going to be Slack again. And you can search. So it's going to be send message to channel. And then, this card requires, before running, requires some options. So first, it's again asking me to select the channel. I do want to send as a bot, and then it's going to be plain text. I click save. Now, also, again, it's before it kind of creates the card or puts the card on the flow, it's asking me, so it has these inputs, and the message is required, but then there are 4 more fields which are optional. Now, 2 are selected here. So, again, different cards are going to have different options. But if you don't want to show a field, like I don't need this timestamp, for example, then you just uncheck this. But I do want to show the emoji, for example, then you check this, right? As for the output, we can have this timestamp, or if you don't want to, you can uncheck it, right? All right. Now for the text, we got the message here. Again, you can keep the output, but if you want to give it a little bit more meaning, then you will rename it. Now, you can create the connection and decide later, okay, I wanted to rename it. I have too many output fields just with the same name. So you go and you say Slack message, and it will be renamed in both places, of course. Now, this is the bot name, so we can just say welcome bot, and then the emoji, we can put hello, right? I'm gonna save. All right. Okay, so let me first remove Kate. Remove Kate, and now we're going to deactivate Kate again, I think for the last time. And let's activate. Let's look in the channel. So Kate was removed, left, and then rejoined, and then we should see how, and here we're good to see the message. Right, so Kate joined the channel, and then or the bot in this case, sent a message to let everyone else know that Kate joined this channel. Okay, and then we can go to workflows, go to execution history. And what I said at the beginning, this option right here is what allows to see this history and the data. Okay, now the same option, if you when you turn the flow on or off, it's the same option right here. Okay, so but looking at the very last execution, again, we got our event and the event information. We're now splitting the text, the email into the name and the domain. Then we're using the list add card to get the index, the value at index 0. We're using a action card, invite user to channel. We're inviting Kate to Slack. We are creating a message with the user's name, and then using an action card again from Slack to send a message welcoming the user. Okay. And of course, I didn't do this, but if you want to test this, you can of course do that, and then hello from workflows, and click test, run, and we can see this message here. So of course, again, I do this all the time. I test individual cards. I test the flow. Again, you don't have to build the entire flow to test it. You saw at the beginning, we just, hey, let's make sure that this event works, right? And then you kind of do step by step instead of testing the entire flow, just kind of once you built it. But that's all I wanted to kind of show you. So we built a flow where we invite user to Slack, and then we also send a message welcoming them to Slack. We use an event in this case. We tested the flow at the beginning to see that we can trigger the flow when this event happens. Then we added several more steps, and then we tested individual cards. Function cards, and then we also used action cards. And again, action cards, these are actions to services. And again, behind the scenes, these are API calls. And then we tested those cards as well. And then at the end, we tested the entire flow as well. So again, that's kind of the fundamentals that for building automations and flows with workflows. So I apologize that the chat is not working, but at least the Q&A is working. So if you have any questions, please let me know. When I send you the message or the message comes from Zoom, we have many more similar getting started online meetups where we build different flows each time. So I'll include a link to that. So you can, again, check out other similar sessions. The recording will be up on YouTube tomorrow, and you'll get a message from Zoom with the link to the recording. Or you can also just go to to Okta YouTube channel and look for the workflows playlist, and it will be there. So, yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. And I have no idea why the chat is disabled. Anyhow, I'll need to figure it out for next time. Well, cool. I don't see any more questions. So again, thank you for joining. And I hope this was helpful. And yeah, we'll have more online meetups coming soon. See, there's one more. I do see. So I do see my workflow console available in our test environment, but not in prod. How do I activate this? Um, you know, I would contact your account manager. I think they will know. But it's a product SKU that I think they need to activate or enable to have workflows in your Okta tenant. So yeah, I would contact them, or even maybe send an email to support, also, and they can look into your account. So, all right. Well, thanks again, folks. Thank you for joining. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.